Hi everybody, welcome to The Joy of Being You. My name is Michelle and I talk about all things occult, manifestation, consciousness, symbolic, anything within that realm. And today I'm going to reference my book, I think it's Neville The Complete Collection. I memorized it at this point. And talk about how even though when you first come across Neville, he sounds like all-knowing, all-intelligent, and a little difficult to truly understand based on the terminology and the words he uses, he is actually pretty flawed in the way manifestation works. And it's not because I'm some sort of intelligent person that's trying to call him out. What I want to say is that him, similar to Florence Scovel Shinn, really lend a hand to morality. And I find that they kind of felt life was like an eye for an eye. You know, if you think poorly of this person and they don't accept that thought, then it'll get back to you. And it's like, well, that in itself is a belief. So no, karma means cause and effect, if that's what they're implying, which I think lends a hand to morality, which also to me is dogma. I do believe in being a good person. I do believe in being loving and kind and respectful, because I don't want to be spiteful, hateful, and, a person no one likes. So it's like I am in alignment with love and kinder things because that's the way I want to live my life. But I don't believe in morality, because if the world operated strictly on morality and God, the way religion sees it, is like, oh, so moral, then, why do bad people get away with their bad things? The way I see it is that they're human beings that have free will, and they're exercising their free will. They also have an assumption that the bad that they're doing is not actually inherently bad, because they're conditioned to believe differently, and your belief creates your reality. So they're not doing anything wrong. They're manifesting through hate, and that's fine. There aren't rules to manifestation. You're always manifesting. And how I want to explain that is that it's not that you have just like this amazing power coming out of your third eye and when you meditate and it's like this woo-woo kind of vibe. I feel like that makes it very hard for people to like ground and conceptualize and to actually practice. What I like to say is you're basically just a supercomputer. And the way that you change the level you're on is by changing your thoughts. So then immediately your environment will change when you change your thoughts, which are the software updates in your computer. If you're running on dial-up, your computer is going to be lagging with the subconscious beliefs that you hate but keep repeating. If you upgrade to like whatever is the newest model of that Wi-Fi connection or whatever, you're going to have a quicker speed, you're going to be more efficient because you're actually practicing and you recognized that your lack beliefs created a lack connection, dial-up, software. So if you want to upgrade your computer, you have to upgrade the way you judge life. And the way you judge life is by going inward and being true and honest with yourself. A lot of people say, I did the inner work. My self-concept is healed. Why do they not love me? This is something I really don't like about spirituality in the sense of like people teaching it, is because my thought is that self-love does not give you love. You can love yourself as much as you want, which is, all about the twin flame journey or like the soulmate journey or whatever. You can freaking adore yourself so much. But if you do not believe you are deserving of love, you will never find it. So you will go your entire life healing and cleansing yourself of your inner child trauma bullshit. And, I have to heal this masculine nature and this feminine nature. It's like, no, you existed before you understood what the masculine and feminine nature was. So that those things are not inherently you. Before you learned anything, you just existed. And you were in awe of life. And that is what being a child is. From 0 to 7, I say this all the time. Your brain is in a hypnotic state called theta state, where you are susceptible to learning new things. That is the same thing as programming your mind for manifestation when you're an adult. Your brain is no longer in that autopilot theta state, but you can turn it into being in that way on demand through entering your subconscious, which is through repetition in a hypnotic way, which is why Neville also suggests going to bed, repeating your affirmations, waking up, repeating them, because your brain is actually getting out of theta state when you're waking up and getting into it when you're about to go to sleep. So when you hit those sweet spots of hypnosis, when you listen to your affirmations or repeat what you're saying or visualize something and wake up knowing it to be true, you need to wake up expecting it. And even if it doesn't happen, I don't care, bulldoze through that. Yes, it will, because it already has. This is not a logical concept. It's very much having to trust yourself. And that's hard to do because it's so much easier to give your power away to trust somebody else's beliefs. That's why we go to people for advice, because we trust them more than ourselves. But the thing is everyone's a mirror and just will show you what you think anyway. So it's not really that person that has the power, you did all along. But because you visually see them, it's very tempting to believe they know more than you do, when in actuality, all they're repeating back to you is what you think they will. So is it really advice? They're just mirroring your inner dialogue. But you just can't see it because your thoughts are rampant and they're destroying your connection to what your innermost beliefs are about that situation. So with Neville, I wanted to point out this little story on page 278. And it's a couple paragraphs long, so bear with me. But I think it's important to say because it will, I think, help people understand that the way Neville says something or sees something isn't the only way to create reality. Meaning it gives you a lot more power back. So I'm going to start. It says, I remember the first night I lay in my bed and dared to claim I am God, much like all of us. Afraid that the ceiling would crash down on me, I quickly covered my head just in case. And when nothing happened, I gathered more courage and set out to prove for myself that imagination could create reality, which is what we all should do. It's not something to be scared of, but when we're first coming at it, it is very scary because we don't know what to expect. I did not believe it could, and I wanted to prove Neville wrong. And this guy, speaking from his lens, I think wanted to prove, obviously, Neville was wrong based on what he preaches. That was back in 1964, and I haven't succeeded yet. Not all of my imaginal acts have come to fruition, but I now know that the fault does not lie in the teaching, but in my belief in myself. And as I have grown in my belief and trust and faith in what I have imagined, I have gained confidence, which in Latin means faith. Confidence, conviction, it's the foundation of religion, which is faith. And religion does not teach this scripture. Religion teaches you God is outside of you and that all the other gods from all the other religions are wrong. And that's how you divide and conquer the masses. They want you to hate the other person next to you so you don't look at them and say, why are you causing all of this commotion? If you were to understand your thoughts create your reality, you could understand how you contribute to the negativity of the world. But if we think beautiful things, and we each do that every day, imagine how beautiful the world would be. If the world is a simulation of my innermost beliefs, I'll have to see it. And if we all thought we're shown the truth, we all live happy, healthy lives, corruption is released, it's irrelevant, it's no longer a thing, I don't know, imagine what would happen. Isn't that one of the Beatles songs? Imagine all the people caring for the world. Yeah, whatever that one is. It's just saying, like, imagine if we all just freaking had peace in our head, you know? Okay. Several years ago, I put together a group of lectures of Neville's and called the book Immortal Man. At the time, I was afraid to change his words, even though I felt I could make the message clearer if I did. See, so this guy is basically saying he learned from Neville. Neville says things in a complicated way when first approached, but then when revisited and applied, it starts to make more sense. So what this guy wanted to do is basically just break it down in common English, just like make it make sense. Shortly after its publication, I turned to self one night and asked, Is it all right to change the words as long as I do not change the meaning? I know that if truth were told so that it could be understood, it would be believed. I fell asleep questioning myself, and in the night, I had this dream. I am on my way to work. As I enter the building, I see directly before me a beautiful restaurant whose tables are filled with diners enjoying their meals. Neville is standing next to a fireplace, speaking to a group nearby. Thrilled to find him there, I am eager to show him the book of his lectures I had published and question him regarding the change of words. But as I turn to take the case I am carrying into my office, get the book in return, he glances up and catches my eye. Instantly, changing my mind, I turn and go directly into the restaurant to join him. But when I arrive, I discover that he has vanished, leaving the ladies to tell me that he is gone and will never return. Heartsick, I return to the lobby with its hard tile floor when suddenly, the case I had been carrying fell from its handle. The moment it hit the floor, the case opened. My book fell out and lay open at its center seam. As I looked down in horror, I saw that I had been carrying a briefcase which contained a tape recorder that had turned on due to the fall, and Neville's voice was ringing out loud and clear. Embarrassed, I stooped down to turn off the volume, only to discover that all the knobs had fallen off the machine, and there was no way for me to turn him off. This last part is the most important. As I tried to push the case over to the far wall in order to pick it up, I awoke with these words ringing in my ears. I am in you, as you. From that moment on, my fears had vanished, and since that time, I've gained confidence in my writing. These are Neville's words, Neville's thoughts, yet we are so closely woven in the tapestry of thought that the words are now mine. Basically, what this guy was doing in this book was taking Neville's lectures and just writing them out in a way that would make sense to someone else like me. In his dream, back in 1964 or whatever, he was thinking, oh my God, Neville, he's the guy that teaches this stuff. Will he think poorly of me? Am I wrong to do this? It's like, you're God too. If that idea came to you, it's a good idea. If it feels good and you're all for it, go for. Why ask Neville? And I get there's like courtesy and permission or whatever it might be, but it's like he said, I am in you as you. And that's why it's really confusing in religion where it's like people confuse God for Jesus and Jesus for God, and they're like, why do they use them interchangeably? It's because of this reason. I am within you. I am that I am. That is the only God. Religion is just a bunch of ideas put together that explain consciousness, and through time, it was a horrible game of telephone that completely removed the theory that we are all one, and instead said, no, there's something outside of us that rules us all. That sounds like a dictatorship. And it's no surprise that church and state have never separated. It's like Rome did not go away. It went into the Vatican, and the Vatican controls a lot of the world right now. So it's the history repeating itself. If you think the way you go about manifestation will not work because Neville is the end all be all, he is the God of consciousness, it's like, what about Jesus? Neville's better than him. It's like, well, Jesus, to me, honestly, no disrespect if you believe it, but Jesus isn't real. He's a parable. He's an allegory. And Neville's no different than you. I think he died of an aneurysm or something. Like, he was like, I've done it all. I'm good. I'm going to just sit in my rocking chair and die. And, he was incredibly flawed. Jesus was very flawed. Humans are flawed in nature. Humans are very flawed in nature because we have duality, and we were born that way so we could experience what perfection is. If you were always perfection, you wouldn't understand what you are because you would have no contrast to understand it. You need to be hurt to know what it feels like to be not hurt. If you got a paper cut, but you never experienced anything but paper cuts, you'd just be like, oh, it's another day. You wouldn't know what peace is. So it's like, whatever, you get used to it. Again, unless you have a low tolerance, but it's like you would need a high tolerance. But I hope you get what I'm saying. In the next page, or the page before, it says, everything depends upon man's attitude towards himself. That which he will not affirm as true within himself can never develop in his world. A change of concept of self is the right adjustment. The new relationship between the surface and the depth of man. The depth of man is your subconscious. The surface is your conscious awareness. What are you choosing to think with your conscious? And the depths, the subconscious, will be programmed with those thoughts you chose. And that is what, to me, the masculine and feminine is. There's like, the feminine side of you is your emotions, your intuition, your connection to source. That's the right side of your brain. The left side of your brain is your ego, it's your mind, it's the action taking. It is not bad, it's not inherently evil. You need an ego. You need an ego to protect your body. That's why your mind hates your spirit. That's why your mind hates your intuition, because your intuition has plans for you that don't make sense logically. If you want, let's say, a partner, and for whatever reason, you have this weird intuition to go to ShopRite, you're like, logically, I don't need groceries. Why would I rationally want to go to ShopRite? But it's like, because the most handsome or beautiful partner in the entire world is going to be next to you at checkout. So that's why your logic and your mind, or man, constantly is abusing the woman in scripture. I mean, not constantly, depends on the man. But, that's why Abraham gives Sarah to Pharaoh. It's like, nope, you can take it. I'm kind of scared for my life right now. It's animalistic in nature. You didn't have faith. You didn't protect your spirit. So then God sends down a plague to like purge that whole thing and like start over again. And that's, to me, the same as burnout. Is just like you let go of your spirit, your connection to source, and now you're going to be sick and hit with something that makes you resent yourself and recognize that you have to start over. And then you're reconnected with Sarah, and then you build your relationship afterwards. And then Sarah's built or buried in a tomb, or like, I don't know, like on a plain somewhere, but she's like buried into a cave. And when you look at a cave in allegory and symbolism, what that is the depths of something that is vastly protected by a very hard exterior. What does that sound like to you? That sounds like a head. A cave is a freaking skull. And your subconscious is buried deep in the back of your skull. That's why Sarah's buried in a cave. Because the spirit is integrated into the mind. And Abraham integrated Sarah, the spirit, into the mind, and that's why he passed off his power lineage to his son, Isaac. So what I wanted to say with this video is that, manifestation is always happening to all of us. And if you give your power away to a teacher that knows more than you, then, indirectly, you'll believe them more than you believe yourself, which is fine. I actually think that's a really good idea to a degree, because if you believe somebody else when you can't have your own belief, it doesn't matter. Conviction is still there somehow, some way. But eventually you need to recognize the fact that you had conviction in them is the reason why your thing was created. It's not about that person. It's not about their charming way of explaining something. What it is you believed them when you couldn't believe in yourself. And that's why I think we're all here, But again, what I want to point out is don't make that the final destination for you manifesting, unless you always want to kind of pawn off your power to somebody else saying, well, I believe they're teaching, so therefore this has to happen. I mean, sure, that makes sense. But also understand that there's no better teacher than yourself. Once you start experiencing manifestation for yourself and you finally click into whatever it is that you do, whether it's visualizing, scripting, robotic affirming, you can just tell yourself robotic affirmation works. You can tell yourself scripting just works. And even if it doesn't, in the first day or two, just say it does work. Command it. Command it. I think that's one of Neville's books, At Your Command, right? It's like you have to be convinced. If you're convinced of something, do you say it indifferently? If your favorite color is yellow, are you just like, yeah, like I guess it's yellow? It's like, no, you like yellow. My favorite color is yellow. What do you want from me? Like, you say it as a matter of fact. It doesn't have to be with an attitude, but you say it for certain because you know it's true. And that same logic applies to whatever it is that you want to create. There's resistance to what you want to create because you've been indoctrinated to believe it's hard. You've been indoctrinated to buy into a system that doesn't serve a majority of people because it keeps them confined to a 9 to 5 with an economy that they control and dictate that can't really accommodate well for your salary. So then there's always issues. It's like they want the rich to get richer because rich is a concept that they keep to themselves. And I mean, take this with a grain of salt, but this economy and this government wasn't around all the time. Life existed far before America was even here. And I'd argue they were significantly more intelligent than we are now. I think we're in a dark age where they're hiding information. It makes sense if you're transferring all your history into a digital platform that can be erased. And if you're rewriting books right now saying this is wrong, this is right, this is what we're teaching in school, we're forgetting about this, it's rewriting in front of you. Like they don't want you to know this stuff. So if we wake up to know this stuff, we can take our power back and make a world that's really beautiful. When it comes to relationships, stop telling yourself true love is impossible. I mean, that's why TV is the way it is. Do you see all these people who hate themselves? Get this Botox. Yeah. Get this Sonobello. Oh my God. Get your belly weight off. It's like, guys aren't short enough or tall enough. Like, I only want tall guys. It's like everyone it's just not everyone, but the TV is projecting insecurities, and we have such young people now hating themselves. And I don't want to say all of them. I think actually there's a resurgence of people connecting, which is beautiful and should be that way. And I hope there's more realization of that, which I do think will happen. But I just wanted to point out the tactic of self-hate that was indoctrinated on all of humanity. If they were to gas us up since the beginning of time and tell us about the power of the mind, we wouldn't need a government to sustain ourselves. We'd all be in control if we were to choose that route. Like, in theory, that's very utopian and really, really beautiful. And that's how the world should be. But it's not, because crazy people like power. And, well, I don't know. Like, that's just what crazy people do. So, I mean, that's all I have for this video. It's a little bit about manifestation, but also talking about how Neville and Florence aren't the end-all be-all. Like, this guy rewrote his words, explained it in a way that made sense to me when Neville didn't make sense to me. That helps me, and I was able to manifest. You know, is it because of this guy? It's like, yeah, he connected the dots a bit, but I also took the responsibility to practice. So it's like, did this guy help me more or Neville? I don't know. He communicated it in a way that Neville couldn't. I'd argue this guy helped me more. So it's like, however you learn, however you manifest, it's not, you do what you want and stick to that thing and bulldoze through your conviction in it working, and it will. So with that said, I'm going to end this video here. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you like my content, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Check out my links that I have in my description, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.